whoopsie, one second. Warner Brothers Discovery has told teams that it plans to exit its regional sports network business entirely within the next several weeks. The company, which operates three AT&T Sportsnet's brand channels in Denver, Houston, and Pittsburgh, and has a minority stake in Root Sports Channel in Seattle, has told teams that they have until March 31st to reach a full agreement to take their rights back. And if Root Sports Networks can't reach a deal with those teams, the channel eventually plans to move forward with the Chapter 7 liquidation filing. Just really quick, this is kind of the team that Warner Brothers Discovery has teams with or deals with. It has 4 MLB teams with the Astro, Mariners, and Pirates and Rockies, 3 NBA teams, the Blazers, Jazz, and Rockets, 3 NHL teams, the Kraken, Penguins, and the Golden Knights. And this is, of course, a time when Warner Brothers Sports Discovery has been trying to get out of the Root Sports Network business for a while. And this is significant, especially in the Seattle area, because the Mariners own 60% of Root Sports in Seattle, I believe, or like the West Coast side of things. And Warner Brothers Sports Media owns about 40%. So this is a huge deal in terms of the amount of money that's been going on and around. We know that, and just a little bit of context, we know that the Amazons and the Apple TVs and the NBCs and all these other sports networks are trying to kind of get into the sports network market. I think that this is a very expensive situation, as you can clearly see. By the way, that, you know, they're right now, I believe that the current company is $8 billion in debt. And so that's a lot of money to catch up on. And so it's one of those interesting things where I think we're going to start to see a little bit of the decline in sports media, especially local sports media network coverages. And so, Pete, I know I said a mouthful. I know this was a lot to talk about, but what is your opinion about this whole situation as it pertains to the Root Sports Network deal just completely going kaput? And now it seems like it might be the end of, it looks like the current end of Root Sports Network as we currently know it.
I mean, I can't lie. I'm pretty uneducated as far as this kind of thing is concerned. It's not my area, my forte of expertise, as it were. But I mean, this is what happens to dinosaurs, right? Like, they go away. This is so outdated. You know, having your teams locked to just your city, and I don't know if anybody is too familiar with like the Denver Nuggets. They're not even part of this, right? But like, people in Denver can hardly watch that team just based on the way that these local media companies and networks have their rights and stuff like that organized. It makes it so impossible. And I don't know, man. I think that this is going to be a good thing in the long run. Inevitably, this is what all these bigger companies want. I mean, you left out a huge sleeping giant in terms of getting these media rights. That's YouTube. Like, YouTube, you saw didn't they get NFL? They got the Red Zone network or whatever.
I believe so, or something like that. Some of that nature.
I think they just have got the streaming rights to the NFL for the most part. That being said, that's where all this is going. You know, I think the NBA is going to want to have their app become even better. Like, I don't know about you, Bernie, but I could speak for myself. There is nothing that bothers me on any streaming platform more than the NBA app, League Pass. And when you go to watch a game, specifically your favorite team, and it's locked out for whatever reason. It's locked out for, regional reasons, or it's locked to this network for the next 24 hours or whatever like that. It's the worst stuff known to man. And really, that does nobody any favors. Like, that seals off a huge portion of your potential viewer base and, just makes it a barrier that people are going to not want to get through to see your stuff. So, I don't know, man. This seems like a good thing in my opinion. And honestly, what have they done recently that's been that great media-wise anyway? Like, I think they've been pretty terrible for a minute now. So, I don't know. I'm excited to see where it goes. I've long bemoaned regional sports coverage. I think it's the worst thing on planet Earth. It made sense in the 90s. Maybe even in the early 2000s it made sense. Nowadays, with the internet, it's beyond logic. Like, people watch teams and root for their home team from all around the world. People live everywhere nowadays. It's just not the same as it used to be. So this is a good thing. Hopefully it means these, fans of these teams can watch their home team more often. That's what I'm hoping for, at least. We'll see. Maybe it gets worse. Maybe some even more strict organization or company gets a hold of the rights. But I just don't think that's going to be the case, realistically. It's just going
Yeah.
to get opened up more and more.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a very interesting situation to kind of continue to monitor, especially as we move into this digital age. We didn't really talk about it the last couple days, and I only mentioned it in my single stream, and that was, of course, the NBA having this new sort of AI generated thing where you can put yourself in the game. And I think that as we continue to look and further along down the line, the days of traditional cable TV, I think it's still there in terms
For
of
now.
how many streaming services, in terms of like, oh, Xfinity has their own streaming service, or Disney has their own streaming service. It's all, to me, what happened was is that now it's all chopped up, in my opinion. And probably, if you are a fan or you love a certain thing in media, maybe you'll just pay for one of those things. But knowing some families, they're gonna want everything, and to me, it's a continuously revolving door, as it
Yeah.
pertains to just media in general. One day this TV show is on this network, and then all of a sudden now it's on this network, and you have to like switch subscribing stuff, and one day it's
Yeah.
on Paramount, the next day it's on HBO Max, and it
Well, and
continues to be a revolving door, in my opinion. But what were we gonna say?
I was going to say, that's the thing. I mean, in general, and this goes beyond just sports streaming and stuff like that. I think all streaming. I think we're seeing like the return of cable. I'm not saying we're going to go back to cable, but more like bundles and packages like that, right? Where you pay for
Mm-hmm.
this one service that's $69.99 for the year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you get 8 of these streaming networks all conglomerated together. We're going back to cable. It's just, instead of having a cable box where you pay for a subscription for all the channels, you
Yeah.
pay for a channel that is the same equivalent of that, but in the 2020s, right? Like, that's literally where we're going. Nobody
Yeah.
wants to pay 9 different subscription services. And really, it was a bad model even from the beginning. And I think that's what these sports companies are realizing. Like, let's let one company, or maybe even two, get the rights to all of our games and then put it on a platform where you can go watch any of the games if
Mm-hmm.
you pay for this service. Like, to me, is that not what League Pass is supposed to be? Like, I feel like that's what it's advertised as. However, in the way that everything is broken up and split up now, it's really not that. Like, there's so often you go on there, you pay the full fee for the whole league's worth of
Mm-hmm.
games. You might be able to watch like 70% of the games when they're on at any given time due to, local restrictions, or they're on TNT tonight. You have to wait for those games to be over, or ESPN has the rights for it's awful, man. I'm so excited. Hopefully it ends as soon as possible, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be interesting because this was also an area, as you guys can see here in this part of it. It talked about the Golden Knights in particular had TV rights back in 2017, and it's a deal believed to be worth about 13 million per year. So, I think that's another thing that we also have to think and consider. I mean, the reason why these companies are in so much debt is
Yeah.
because of all the TV deals, and they can't compete with the ESPNs or the NBCs or any of these sports networks that
Hmm.
have billions of dollars and can literally throw money here and there, just to acquire these TV rights. And that's going to be a very interesting situation for me moving forward, because every year you hear about the TV deals getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
My thing is, like, when is it going to be stagnant? When are you going to get to a point where it can no longer get so big, and that now it's kind of plateaued a little bit?
I mean,
I know that we're continuously, money continuously is increasing in sports. There's so many different avenues. Clearly, a channel like this is another avenue as well. Two guys wanted to talk about sports. Do I want to?
YouTube. We'll
Yeah,
commentate, YouTube. Let us know. It'll
yeah,
be cheap.
yeah. Super cheap. We'll work for free hoagie sandwiches. Not really.
Take them.
No.
No, we'll be way cheaper than most of the alternatives. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I just think, to me, like, ESPN is increasingly selling off most of its kind of other stuff to facilitate the funds to pay for these sports leagues. Because one thing that you guys will notice, and really what you guys can think about, most of the time people that get cable or any of these type of sports is the only live thing that people are willing to pay for. Like, there's no longer
Yeah.
like a TV show like there was back in the days, like, not to age myself, but and I didn't really watch it that much, or even until I was way older. But a show like Friends, a show like How I Met Your, like those shows used to be like every week you had to tune into CBS to watch that show, or
I
NBC
mean,
to watch that show.
The
Nowadays
Last of
it's
Us might have something to say about that.
yeah, but you know what I mean? Like Last of Us,
No, I know.
it's like you had to buy the cable package to watch it. Where
Sure.
now it's like, oh, I can just give you the first 4 episodes and you'll be happy, and then you'll have to wait a couple more months. It just
Yeah.
continues to be this whole situation where it's no longer people are paying cable to watch those type of shows. Now they're paying cable
Yeah.
to watch just sports, and I think, and maybe the news, and how the news is these days. And so
Unwatchable.
to me, what I clearly can tell by this is that I think at the end of the day, the little like mom and pop media rights and media companies are gonna go by the wayside, and eventually it's just gonna be owned by ESPN and McDisney.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of it. Like, that's unfortunate, but I don't know. Nothing lasts forever, right? And maybe
Yeah.
that's just a matter of right now. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like, to
Yeah.
me, that seems like what it is. It's like a correction on the market. We have these companies are super top heavy, but like you just said, like there is going to come a time where you don't want to pay $800 million per season for the NBA rights. Like you won't make that much return in revenue, right? We might even be there already. Like if you look at the way that All-Star game went, just rating wise, and I don't want to go too deep into it but we didn't even really talk about it in our last stream, but
Mm-hmm.
like one of the things, and I've heard this as a criticism, I've heard it as compliment, it's somewhere in between, is the way that the NBA proliferates the highlights of these games nowadays. Like you can go on YouTube and watch a 12-minute supercut of any game, get the full picture for the most part. It's better than looking at the box score.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of people who feel completely satisfied. I got to watch my basketball game tonight. I watched the 12-minute cut. That's usually good enough for a lot of people. I would say, excuse me, jeez, I just lost my brain. Especially young people, like in this TikTok generation, that's a perfect amount of content for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
However, that doesn't equal money for people. Like those are YouTube videos. You can watch those free. You can basically, there's nothing you have to do as far as any payment as far as the customer side of things, and there's no expectation of further purchase afterwards, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just get to see it with no financial
Mm-hmm.
output for it. So
Yeah.
that is, I don't know, man, like that gets a lot of eyes on the product, but it doesn't equate to a lot of good business for the company either. So there's somewhere in there where they need to turn these extra viewers, because I don't know about you, Bernie. What would you say? Like, we've been basketball fans our whole lives, right? It certainly feels like people watch the NBA more than they ever have. However, it also feels like people know less about it, and I don't know how to put it. Like, do you kind of understand what I'm saying? Like,
I
it
get
seems like a base engagement level is higher, but the deeper dive into like investing your money into the product and caring about it like financially is not as strong as it used to be. Like I don't see a lot of people walking around with like I don't know, maybe I'm talking crazy, but there's going to come a day where it is not as lucrative for one or two companies to spend all of their money on these rights, and we'll see if it turns into back into what it is now or what we're coming out of now, which is these smaller companies. Like the last thing I'll say for this, I think it's kind of interesting. I think the Trailblazers are going to be the most interesting team in this whole ordeal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my logic here is They are essentially the Pacific Northwest's basketball team. Like, we have local restrictions in Seattle for them because of the Root Network, right?
Mm-hmm.
If the NBA truly has plans to expand into Seattle and Vegas, but specifically Seattle, Portland would no longer be our local team. We would have, the Sonics or whatever the name ends up being for the team.
Yeah.
Do you maybe they're going to go to a whole new network? Maybe this is part of the plan of like we need to just get out of these local deals so nobody's contractually because they can't extend a contract now with Root Network for like 4 or 5 years. That doesn't make any sense, does it?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's going to be the interesting part of it because I think before the Sonics used to be on the Root Sports Network as well,
Hmm.
and all that stuff, and so
Well,
it,
Portland wasn't on it back then, were they?
I think they were. It was just like
Oh, really?
yeah, it was like
Okay.
more. I
It is
mean,
different now, though. Maybe it's just too much money nowadays to have them both.
yeah, I mean this is going to be the thing that I think a lot of us are kind of realizing as we move more towards this sort of like pay per view in a sense,
Yeah.
pay per view model that's going to be happening now, which is yeah, you can pay. I think currently it's $100 for NBA League Pass at the beginning of the year. I know it's $50 now, but at the beginning of the year it was $100.
That's one team, right? Isn't it one? Isn't one team $100? It's
I
like
think.
130 for all teams, 140 for all teams.
Let me double check that. But while I'm checking that, I think it's going to become a situation where now, things like the pay per views from the UFC and things like that, I could potentially see them saying, "Hey, let's just do this pay per view model. Hey, pay $2 a game to watch your favorite team play." Um,
Or like add that into the model of like let's just use YouTube as an example, right? Let's say YouTube is like all in on sports. They buy the rights for the NBA. You could pay the upfront. Here is the fee for one team. Here's the fee for all teams, right? And then they have an option. I don't know if you remember this, Bernie. They it wasn't live. I don't remember it being live, but back in like the early 2010s, it's probably still there too. You could like pay 2.99 for a game immediately after it was over and get the recording of the game. Do you remember that? You
mhm.
could buy it on like iTunes and stuff like that. I used to buy
Yeah,
games and watch it like that sometimes if I
yeah,
missed it.
I remember that.
Um, like I could see that being a thing. And so it isn't necessarily pay per view in the sense that you're paying like like they're never gonna convince somebody to pay $60 for an NBA game. I just don't think that's a thing. But let's say it's 199 and you get access to this game and all its extra features per night.
Yeah,
You can pay that for one game. I don't know. That seems like not a terrible business model. And there's times where like if I'm turning on a Knicks game and I see the TNT thing has it locked until 9:30 and it's 4:30 in the afternoon, I'd probably consider paying the 199 just to watch it right then. Like I
hmm,
probably would do it. So
yeah,
maybe that's just me being an extra. Like I watch every game and I watch tons of other teams most nights too.
yeah.
Maybe that's just me, but I think there'd be a lot of people like that.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a very interesting situation to continue to follow up. And as we continue to move towards this new 2020s, we have no idea where the media network is going to go because for the last 20 years it's kind of seemed like it stayed the same in some sense. And so I think the companies are starting to realize that, and they're starting to think like, how can we one generate more revenue because we have to keep paying these
Yeah,
astronomical fees, and two, how do we make the viewer stay on the channel longer? Like you said, Pete, like it's a perfect example of generations changing day, year by year. You got Generation Z, who's this TikTok generation, the generation that likes 30 seconds to maybe 2 to 3 minute clips, and then they're done.
yeah,
And so, I think that this AI thing that the NBA is trying out is a potential one that they're looking into. I'm sure that they're thinking, okay, let's just AI people into the game so they can feel like they're
that's
part of it. And then they spend minutes and a lot of minutes like in the app doing that thing, which then might turn into hours. And then eventually they could be like, okay, I want to see how I
yeah,
play like the whole game. And it just becomes like this whole let's see how we can generate more revenue. How do we generate more viewership? How do we generate more time retention watching the sport?
sure. Yeah, I mean, it. I don't. I alluded to it in our little chat when we set this up in our pre-show production. I guess you want to call it some pre-production. There's the AI that the NBA announced, which is, you basically AI put your head on a player's body and you're in the game, right?
Yeah.
I will definitely try that when it comes out. I like to try all new stuff like that. If it worked, it'd be incredible. I mean, that would get a ton of people into the NBA, I think. Maybe if it's just for short spurts, I don't know. I do think there would be a lot of people who would try it. I told you in our chat, though, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Wait until they announce AI generated commentary. Wait until they announce AI generated games. I mean, think of that, Bernie. That's going to be one of the things. In the beginning, it will seem like a gimmick because it will be like 2K. You're watching a 2K game. But it won't take long for it to be. I do want to see what LeBron and MJ on a team would look like in a real game. And then the AI generation it'll happen and you'll be able to watch it. Will it be exactly like what it would be in real life? Probably not, but I bet it'll be a lot closer than actual 2K in time, right? So that kind of stuff is where a lot of these companies are going to hope to make their money, because the AI part of it will be maybe not a one-time fee for them, but it will be a lot cheaper than paying huge departments of people to do that for you, right?
Yeah.
So then they can make those changes to their business model, have people pay out. Like, let's say, you can't tell me, Bernie, let's say it's $9.99 add-on to your League Pass subscription. It gives you the like an extra option to change who your commentator is. And you basically have like a list of 50 AI voice, actors that you can put in as your commentator.
Yeah.
I think there'd be a ton of people who would pay for that. I said Vin Diesel as an example. Like, why not? I mean, it would be so stupid, but you definitely, Arnold Schwarzenegger, you got The Rock. Let's say they all just say, this season, I'm going to, sell my voice rights to this AI for the NBA. There'd be people who would pay for that. And I bet you there's going to be some of these leagues that start trying that stuff out. If they're already trying out AI, put your head on a player, that's just the start. It's going to keep coming fast and, furious. That was not a Vin Diesel joke, I promise. I didn't mean to say that. But I'm excited to see it, man. I think not the AI, but the NBA there's a lot of potential to make their product more watchable to everybody. And I think like what they're doing with like Wembanyama is a great example of trying to extend out into these other countries with like a really hard line of, hey, we see you. We have Wembanyama coming, French people. Pay attention. We care about French basketball. Invest your time and your attention span into our sport across the, ocean, and we'll keep making it easier to watch for you. That's literally where all this is going. Making it into a global sport is, I would say that seems like the number one priority of the NBA right now.
Yeah, and you can clearly see it with the way that they're streaming, especially FIBA are streaming these like tournament games, and it's starting to become a bigger deal, and that's something that I really appreciate about the NBA and really just basketball in general. Like I talked about years ago, like 2017, 2018. I was kind of talking a little bit out of my butt just in terms of like, the NBA will take over the NFL, but I think it could potentially happen. Especially with the expansion of going worldwide. And having these academies and having especially NBA players like Akeem Olajuwon, having camps in Africa, and players that will eventually, Australia, a perfect example. You got like Patty Mills, like
Josh Giddey, Ben Simmons, Dyson Daniels. There's tons of them.
Yeah, and eventually when they get old and retire, they'll go back to those places and say like and start camps there, and then eventually it'll be big. And I think that's the way that the NBA should expand and really do the things that they need to do in terms of like getting TV rights and things like that, because everyone wants to see the next person coming up. That's why, like you said, that's why they're showing the Victor Wembanyama, I would say, hype. Like they're really buying into it. They're like showing games that they normally wouldn't. And then eventually, I think that they're trying to do that while also as well trying to figure out how to get more people interested. And I think they're trying different ideas. And again, I'm not the biggest proponent of the AI stuff. I might be one of one of few
Why is that?
people?
No, 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 no. I think I'm one of few that's way in on it. I honestly think more people are like you, Bernie. I think more people are much more hesitant to uh, adopting it as a potential, like, because really, it's one of the things I think that I don't want to get too deep on this. This is a topic for a very different podcast than this one, but people, I think, generally speaking, are very hesitant to change in general, and I don't know if it's a general, like a subconscious level of understanding, but I think most people understand that this AI thing is going to change a lot of things about all of our
Yeah.
lives. Like most of our lives in the like I don't know, man. I'm very into this type of stuff. I don't
Mhm.
even think people really comprehend how much bigger it's going to be than like smartphones were. Like smartphones is a huge change to the way humans live, but AI is really going to like drastically change a lot of things. And I do think there's a lot of hesitance to see the way we all live change that
Mhm.
quickly before our eyes. And I think when it comes to media, people become especially hesitant. Like, don't change this thing I like. It's been the way it is for a long time, and I'd prefer it to stay that way. I'm just of the opinion that why would you not want something that can make everything better and optimize it and make it easier for people to focus their attention on more important stuff? Um, I don't know. To me, that makes a lot of sense, but we'll see how it goes. It seems like the NBA wants to be on the forefront of it, though, so I'm excited to see what their plans are.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see what happens, man. I think this is going to be a very fun and interesting situation to continue to monitor and continue to look at. So, people in the comment section, let us know in the comment section down below. Are you guys a big fan of the AI generated stuff that the NBA is going down? Are you hesitant? And also, what do you guys think about this media TV deal that we just spent 20 minutes talking about? Do you guys agree or disagree with the way that sports media should operate? Do you think that there should be little markets? Should there be just the big markets covering it? We'd love to know your guys' comments and opinions in the comments section down below. So please feel free to chat about it and let us know in the live chat or the comment section when this is a separate video.